That is the reality of life. It is realizing that your life is actually not unique to you. And the stressors and the challenges that you go through are common. And most are even predictable, right? Just like the list that I shared with you of all the predictable common stressors that most people go through before the age of 19. So the reality of life is so beautiful because what it does, it squashes the concept that my life is happening to me, this belief that things are happening to me, and that I'm not in control of my life, and that my life shouldn't look the way that it does, and the stressors and the hardships shouldn't happen to me, poor me, right? This is camp victim. So anxious people with chronic anxiety, these are people, we live in camp victim. And the problem is we continue to want to make our life like this. I hope we've learned today that this is impossible. This is where anxiety is coming from, trying to make your life predictable and known. So a person free of chronic anxiety, this is the simple cure. This is how I healed my anxiety naturally. And what you do is you realize there's another way to live. And that new way to live is embracing the reality of life. That life will never be this, so we stop putting our energy and focus into that. And we realize that life is like the mountains, and everyone's life is like the mountains. A series of up and down, a series of actually mostly predictable stressors through our human lifespan. And this is the reality of life, the reality of the human experience. It was so refreshing for me to realize that what I had gone through in my life, it wasn't a Josie experience, right? And it wasn't even a female experience or a Colorado experience where I grew up, that these were human experiences. This is what we go through as humans. So that we realize, resolving our anxiety, we realize that we can't control these events that happen to us. The stressors, meaning the grief and losses, the disappointments, the challenges that are involved usually with our family, children, spouse and work, the divorces, the challenges raising your kids, financial challenges, retirement issues, moving, etc. We can't control these events, but we can control our response to these events. When we realize we can control our response to the events and circumstances of our life, we move into camp take responsibility. And we take back our power, and we take back our control, and we no longer have anxiety. And this was 100% my experience. I have empathy for myself now. I can understand why I lived so terrified, because the experience I had of my life up until I understood the reality of life is I was in a kind of a runaway car in the passenger seat of my life, terrified of where this car was going, having no control over my life, terrified that it was going to crash basically at any moment and roll over. And when I understood the reality of life, I realized I had all the power and control in the world to choose my responses to my challenges. I chose how I respond, and how I respond determines the life I have. From that, I realized that I determine the life I have, not what I've been through, not the stressors, not my dad passing. That wasn't going to define me. I define me for how I choose to respond to it. And that resolved that chronic state of anxiety that I experienced, of feeling so out of control, so worried, so nervous, because I had me. And I can always, again, choose my response. And I'm going to end this video with a quote that really encapsulates everything we talked about today, and especially what we just spoke about. And it's a quote by, I love Viktor Frankl. I think he was but such an incredible human being. And at any time I start finding myself feeling sorry for myself, I think of Viktor Frankl. Not only a famed psychiatrist, he was a survivor of the worst concentration camp of the Holocaust, Auschwitz, and he's also the father of logotherapy. And he's the author of Man's Search for Meaning. If you want to understand what it really looks like to be in control of your experience when everything in your life is taken away, please read Man's Search for Meaning. And Viktor Frankl once said that between a stimuli and a response, there is a gap. And in that gap is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies growth and freedom. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch today. If you have an autoimmune disease or chronic illness, are frustrated with medications, supplements, or food diets, and are ready to start the journey to finally and permanently healing your condition, I have 2 13-week online self-guided educational programs, the Autoimmune Healing Program and the Chronic Illness Healing Program. Both programs teach you how to permanently heal your autoimmune disease or chronic illness, leave behind those doctor's visits and symptom management, and to finally heal without supplements, medication, or food diets. This is the same journey I took and why I am over 10 years completely healthy. All 8 of my autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses are permanently gone. You can find the link to apply for a complimentary course consultation with me down in the description below. And if you're not ready to take this step, watch my free 101 course on autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses. You'll also find the link to watch this down in the description. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch today. I look forward to you permanently healing your autoimmune disease or chronic illness.